Hey, how's it going, y'all? My name is Nick. Welcome to the final episode in our book club for the Sympathizer. It's crazy that we've gotten this far. It's crazy that the book is finally over with. I know that last time we kind of went through the last chapter, did a little bit of a super close reading of the last couple of paragraphs of the book. It's been really fun working through this in this way, kind of taking a look at the book in this capacity. I haven't really gone through a book with this kind of critical lens like this in a little while, so it's been a really great time for me. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying yourselves as well throughout the reading. This time, like I said last episode, we're going to go through some of the questions that the publisher put up on the website for the book and just kind of answer some of those questions the way that I think that they should be answered. There were 26 questions, so I didn't realize that there were that many when I first initially said that I was going to do this. There's 26 questions. I did not want to answer all 26 questions, so I just did a random number generator for 5 of the questions. So we'll go through 5 of the questions. I've got all my answers written down and everything. I'm sure as I think of some things while I'm talking, I will make some asides. So yeah, with all that being said, this is weird. It's weird to say this because there's really not a lot else to do except for get right into it. So first question was number 16. Question reads, throughout the novel, Mon, Bone, and the narrator are referred to as a group, but let's take a deeper look at the blood brothers individually. Who is Mon, Bone, and the narrator? What makes them blood brothers, and what sets them apart? Of the 3, why is the narrator the only one without a name? I thought this question was actually really, really interesting. I think it's cool to look at the characters individually and as a group. I think that Mon is kind of an allegory for the wounded revolutionary that was more or less left behind by the sweeping ideology of the party after the victory of the communists. The total overhaul of society to the point that it has reached causes Mon some intense displeasure. He even goes as far to admit as such to the Sympathizer during the interrogation sequence, imploring him to shoot him in the face. He sees this as his only way out of the kind of prison that he's more or less made for himself here. I think that Mon is a representation of the sort of person that the revolution was designed to uplift and assist, but with the revolution kind of losing its way at this point in the post-war period, he's also the wounded veteran that is unhappy with the direction that the party is taking. Now, on the other side of that coin, I think that Bone is an allegory for the Republican soldier expat. There are countless examples of him talking about him being good at one thing, which is soldiering, and the fact that his new life in America is not really conducive to fulfillment in that capacity. Constantly self-medicates with alcohol, he works multiple dead-end jobs only to skate by relying on welfare, and is all too eager to get back into the action as soon as he's able to with the recon mission. He's the prototypical example of the soldier that has lost both the battle and the war for his homeland and ideology, and is forced to eke out an existence in unfamiliar territory because the land that he was fighting for and willing to die for is no longer available to him. I think the Sympathizer is kind of the man between worlds. He's the person that experiences the pain of both fates. He is the man that has lost everything, even though, realistically, he ideologically won the war. The Sympathizer, I think, is one of the only characters in the novel that isn't supremely allegorical. I think that the thing that makes them blood brothers is their love for their country and for each other. It's a connection that drives Mon to survive his near-fatal wounds and request transfer to become commissar of a prison camp in the middle of nowhere to try and protect his friends from a fate worse than death. It's the connection that also drives Bone and the Sympathizer to return to Vietnam, even though they understand that they probably will not survive the mission at hand. I think it's also the connection that forces Mon to torture the Sympathizer, but also allows the Sympathizer to forgive that torture because of his understanding of the situation in the end. Realistically, I think that the only thing that sets them apart is their ideologies. If they were allowed to remain together as a group while their political differences were settled non-violently, I don't really think that there would be much of a story. But because of the war and because of the bloody nature of their unlike opinions, the central conflict of the story arises. The Sympathizer is so inextricably linked to these two men that he is willing to die 1,000 deaths for them in order to prevent either one from dying even once. And as for the Sympathizer being the only unnamed character in the Blood Brotherhood cadre, I have kind of a boring answer and a less than boring answer for that part of the question. The boring answer is that we're reading this book from his perspective, so for him, his own name is pretty inconsequential to the story. My not so boring answer is that I think he's unnamed because following the events of the story, he's totally inconsequential to the annals of history. Everything that has happened and everything that he has done has amounted to nearly nothing, and for him, there's no real reason for him to record his name. He's the mole that lived underground so long that his true identity has been lost to time and, most importantly, lost to the reader. The next question we got was question number 4. The question is, what adjustments has the United States made in how it deals with countries during and after war? What are the lessons learned from the Vietnam War, and how have those lessons been applied to current wars? I don't really think that the United States has learned too much from the Vietnam War, to be honest with you. I still think that we make the mistake of might equaling right, and the fact that because of our status on the world stage, our causes have kind of an inherent moral superiority. I think that we learned to commit not quite so many ground troops to foreign conflicts, which is a positive. But I think that for the most part, we view ourselves as an interventionary and peacekeeping force. I think that we also tend to hide our ulterior motives when it comes to foreign conflicts. The Vietnam War obviously was a staging ground for the Cold War. But I think that with the advent of the internet and the ability to receive up-to-the-minute access to the front lines of war zones, the United States and other military forces, for that part, are unable to justify certain actions and mislead citizens the way that they have been able to in the past. The next question we got is number 15. Question is, the narrator states early in the novel, if ever circumstances forced us into a situation where death was the price of our brotherhood, I had no doubt that Mon and I would pay. Do you think he is foreshadowing events to come? Why or why not? Why do you think he feels this way about himself and Mon, but doesn't include Bone? I think this is another pretty interesting question. But no, off the top, I don't really think that he's foreshadowing future events because both men make it out of the story alive. I think that the Sympathizer experiences something worse than death at the hands of Mon, but I think that both characters understand the roles that they have to play for the audience that they have. For the Sympathizer, it's after the fact, of course, but I still think that he unfortunately understands, that Mon is just doing what he has to do. I think that he doesn't include Bone in this conversation because if Bone knew the truth about Mon and the Sympathizer's true allegiances, he would kind of take it as a personal slight. Bond is not really the most nuanced man in the world, and he is not really that understanding. So for Mon and the Sympathizer, their communist leanings unite them in a very specific and unique way. Bone is loyal, of course, almost to a fault, but I think that his loyalty would not cross the party lines. 2 more questions here. Number 12 is the next one. Why is the narrator of the Sympathizer important? Is he a reliable narrator? I think that the narrator of the Sympathizer, the person that we've been calling the Sympathizer throughout the entire book club, I think that he's important because almost every character in the story can be read as an allegory, right? extending all the way out to Sonny, the General, Claude. All these different peoples can be read as kind of allegorical in nature. But the Sympathizer is one of the only real people that we have in the story, and his point of view is obviously the one that we get all the details from. I've said it a couple times throughout the book club, but I don't really think that the Sympathizer is a reliable narrator in the slightest. For the first 18 chapters of the book, he's writing to appease his captors and the Commandant, and even though it's supposed to be a confession, for the remaining chapters of the book, they are written by a broken man slowly trying to put the remaining pieces of his psyche back together following a immensely traumatic experience. I think the elements of the supernatural, i.e. Sonny and the Major's ghost constantly confronting the Sympathizer, are a pretty good example of the unreliability of the Sympathizer as a narrator. He's kind of refusing to confront his feelings of guilt and remorse in a meaningful way and call them what they truly are. He insists on instead deflecting them onto the apparitions that he constantly mentions. For our final question, number 23. What does the female agent mean when she is asked her name and she replies, "My surname is Viet and my given name is Nam"? In that moment, is she meant to represent Vietnam? Who else in the novel could be a substitute for the country? How does Vietnam function as a character in the story? I think we've kind of touched on this question a little bit throughout the situation already, but it doesn't really hurt to explore it one more time. I think that in this situation, during her interrogation and eventual rape, I think that she, of course, is supposed to be read as an allegory for Vietnam. That's why she says, that's why she says as much. The policemen are pretty obviously meant to be the Republicans violating the sanctity of the proletariat with the silent approval of the American government, who is Claude in this situation. I think that this novel is really heavily allegorical, like I've said a couple of times already, with Mon representing the northern Vietnamese, Bone representing the southern Vietnamese, and the Sympathizer is unfortunately the poor bastard caught between the two. I think that Vietnam functions as a character in a few different ways throughout the story, changing based on the setting that the Sympathizer is in. Obviously, when he's shooting the Hamlet, Vietnam is meant to be this lawless wasteland inhabited by criminals and bandits. When he is in the prison camp, Vietnam is supposed to be an impregnable fortress that is ruled now with the iron fist of communism. When he's in America, Vietnam is purely an idea, held close to the hearts of the refugees, as seen in the wooden clocks set to Saigon time in the Madame's Pho shop and in Sonny's apartment. I think that Vietnam acts as character and catalyst throughout the novel, changing form and function depending on time, setting, and invoker. And with all that, I think that that is all that I've got for the Sympathizer right now. I thought this book was great. I thought it was great. I would probably give it like 4.3 stars out of 5, which is pretty high praise. I was not blown away by the ending. I didn't, the last maybe 2 chapters I didn't think were some of the best in the book. I think that, the middle of the book is really where a lot of the great stuff happens. I think that a lot of the female characters, we're kind of missing that perspective in the last few chapters of the book. I wish that we got more Miss Maury, but that's just my own personal opinion. Let me know what you thought about the book. Let me know if you answered any of these questions yourself, if you answered any of the other questions that they got on the publisher's website. Like I said, there is 26 of them, so take your pick. I'm sure you'll find something interesting to say about the book through, exploring any of the questions. Yeah, let me know what you thought. Probably going to take a little bit of a break from the book club just to kind of refocus my attentions and figure out kind of the structure of the next one. Like I said, I would like to continue doing this. It's just kind of a matter of seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work quite so well, and figuring it out. So all that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you for sticking around. I had a great time, like I said at the top. This was a really fun experience, and I hope that you enjoyed watching the videos. I hope that you enjoyed the book itself, The Sympathizer. Yeah, let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for making it to the end of another one. Thanks again for making it to the end of the book club for The Sympathizer. If I missed anything, definitely give me a shout. Maybe in 6 or 8 months, I'll do a Sympathizer Revisited, and we can kind of hash it all out one more time. Like I said, thank you so much for checking it out. Thanks so much for making it to the end, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.